To another how-to video on Kriyastream. Kriyastream is a cursor-like app for PMs, and what we have been doing is Vibe PMing instead of Vibe coding. Is we've created a project plan from a scope that was offered to us in response to a proposal. Response to an RFP in a proposal, and we used that to create this project. Then we created some estimates for this project plan, and now we actually have a cost. And in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to try to fill some gaps here, and then it's going to get interesting because we're going to ask it to give us additional scope that we may be missing. So we're going to actually analyze the proposal to say, if the proposal suggested this was a scope, and this is the duration, this is the cost, what are we missing? I'm not a NetSuite implementation expert, but I expect my assistant PM to be Kriya, who's going to tell me if this project is real or what we're missing. So let's keep going. So here's the full thread that we've been using to configure this project. So I'm going to continue in this conversation and ask it. Looks like we are missing some rates for some roles assigned to this project, some roles used for estimating this project. Fetch all the roles we are missing rates for and propose some valid rates. So in this case, this is an awesome feature of Kriyastream where you can actually not only manage roles and your team members, but you can actually manage the cost of labor. And when you first get started, we actually create a rate card for your team based on the industry you belong to and the location of your office and location of your team. In our case, especially for US, we have it configured to fetch rates from Bureau of Labor Statistics and other sources to suggest some reasonable rates. And there are two ways to look at the rates. You can actually think of rates as cost parameters or actually revenue parameters. So if I have my employees, every employee has a rate. If you ask your HR, they will more than likely be able to tell you what the rate is for your for you as an employee, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're in professional services or any company, your total comp is broken down into a rate card, and that is what the company uses to make sure your comp as per their guidelines and as per the market rates. But it all comes down to a rate card. And that is not just for your base comp, but it could be for your total comp. And if they're not telling you that, then somebody at some point is not being very truthful, but because that is literally how the business works. Or it's just that the business doesn't know that that's what they should be doing, because that's the most fundamental unit of measuring total cost of operations. If you're in professional services, that is even more important, because another metric that you're chasing is total revenue per employee. So it's per capita revenue. So that also matters in terms of how they structure the rate cards. Anyways, so now back to our point. It said it found two roles where it's proposing some rates. And let's look at this, right? So if I hover over any of these, I can see the actual roles assigned, the effort, and in this case, I see the functional consultant is fine, but the technical consultant is missing rates. So it's accurately found that the technical consultant, we need to provide some rates, and it's going to propose cost rate, revenue rate, and it's a fairly expensive resource, it looks like. So if you're in professional services, you're making a lot of money if you are a NetSuite technical consultant, and it even knows the experience level, the rate type, short-term, long-term, and proposes some rates. So let's create these. So once these rates are created, we shouldn't have any more gaps in our cost structure, and our estimates look pretty good. And then it's going to get a little interesting to see what scope we may be missing in this project and whether our PM can identify any risks in terms of work breakdown or schedule or anything else. So I'll give it a minute to finish creating rates, and then we'll ask it to analyze scope and tell us what we may be missing. All right, it created the rates. So let's see. Now that the rates are created, I'm going to try to do a hard refresh in this case because it seems like our project didn't really load with the cost that was created. But let's see. Once this is done, we'll move to the next step. All right, so we have our person here. The rates are not applied, so let's see if we can tell it to apply the rates. Let's make sure the rates are assigned to the estimates for these roles. I think that should be interesting. And once we know we have the rates in place, we should be good. Now, there's another way to do this, which is you could go directly to your team settings. I click on the team settings and I can go to my rate cards, and I can view my rates, and that's a little too squished, hence I see some oddities with the UI. So here I can look at NetSuite technical consultant, and I see the rate was created. So this is a really good sign that for this role we now have a rate. However, when you do an estimate, you are assigning a role to the estimate, and you may have additional rate that you're assigning for that particular estimate. So let's see what Kriya is up to. I've updated data strategy estimate. Okay. Technical consultant and 170 hours and the total cost. Okay, so let's look at a project plan now. I'm curious to see if it's updated. Actually still not updated. So let's see, scan all estimates, say this, still lack a rate ID. Perfect, okay, rate is available. Percent the cost and rate, yes. Yes, proceed. So let's see if it's done its analysis, but I think what it's really missing is applying that rate ID, and it's a little bit technical speak that it's actually telling you that, oh, I got to pick up that rate and assign that rate ID to that particular estimate, so we can kind of basically eliminate the gaps in our cost estimates. But we're very close, and I think we'll move on to the next step here shortly. All right, we'll give it a minute to finish assigning that. By the way, like I said, I may have mentioned this in another video, that I really enjoy using Kriyastream in Cursor. So there's a feature here to add the Kriya MCP to Cursor, and then I have my rules file there. You can download the rules file. It's a much better way for you to tell Cursor how to work with Kriyastream. And how to use the Kriya Assistant, and it uses the exact same tools, but Cursor or Claude will definitely have a much better agent loop to execute things way more accurately, but also do it super, super fast. So I actually really enjoy using this in Kriyastream. In Cursor. All right. So I think it's taking a little bit longer than expected. We'll see if it finishes, and then we'll continue with the next part. That's another feature that we're working on to make sure we get past this notion of using any particular model. I think with something like an open router, we are able to do more dynamic model routing. That is still on our roadmap, but we should be able to offer that fairly soon. to where you have a much faster response, and we're not using reasoning for simple tasks, and where we do need reasoning, that we are using the appropriate models and going beyond even GPT models. But we're kind of absolutely telling you the models we're using. Again, this is not coding level tasks. You don't need a very advanced model. Vibe PMing doesn't really need full-blown large LLMs. You can do, even the mini models do fairly well, and can keep your execution fast and keep your costs low. So we'll let it finish, and then we'll go to the next step.